Is it too dangerous, or is it something you could do to say, hey, we have the ranked algorithm working for squads. It's not perfect for duos or solos, but we would like to test out to see how it would work. Is it too risky for you guys to like open the mode up, or does it require so much coding that you'd actually have to make the decision ahead of time? And I realize we may be getting way too in the weeds here, but it's like, again, I sit here and I'm like, I'm in a spot where as a veteran player, I look at ranked as just being this amazing thing that I had questions about, honestly. And now I'm like, I'm DMing everybody on my Discord trying to figure out who wants to play ranked tomorrow night, And so, again, that might be too in the weeds, but is it something that's testable, or does it require too much backend to move the ranking algorithm over to one of those other modes?
So I'm gonna give an answer that is, it has two aspects to it. You'll have to take them as you will, I guess. One is, yes, Labs is fully capable of operating under a separate queue and tied to the skill-based rating algorithm. We did the work for this, actually. We were going to launch an additional Labs test before the launch of Ranked that integrated the skill-based rating system that we had updated, the one that showed up in the final launch that was different than the previous one, with the settings, with the game mode settings that we launched with. We were going to do this test so that we could see how they work together and see if that magic that you actually did feel of players playing seriously because they cared about ranked mixing with the game settings created the experience that we wanted to. We ended up not shipping it, and there's a variety of reasons behind that mostly come down to production is hard and there wasn't enough time. But we did the work. It's definitely possible. So if we wanted to, and we decided that it would be helpful, we could launch a labs event at some point in the weekend where we had a solo mode with the esports settings and see how many people showed up. That's definitely possible. Unfortunately, this is the part that you're probably not going to like. That type of work, that takes months to set up, and the start of season 8, the amount of time it takes to prepare the builds for season 8. Those are pretty much going to be set soonish. So even if we did something like that, we're talking season 9 if we use that as a plan for building a solo ranked mode, unfortunately.
Because first we'd have to
and
run the test in labs, and then we'd have to make a decision, and then we'd have to port it into the next season, which would be 9. That's right.
Yeah, so that's not an answer I don't like, and again, selfishly, I was wanting the clarification for it because it's what all of these conversations, when you talk to a single other person who's a solo player or a duo player, they all boil down to is like, hey man, ranked is awesome, but man, I miss duos, or man, I miss solos. But right now, the push, the hype, everything is towards ranked squads. So even all the guys that were solo and duo players that I ran into all the time, and we've got these little mini rivalries, we're all playing ranked, and we're playing ranked together, which is interesting as well. To your point, Corrigan, is that it's really not forcing, but it's recommending to people to play differently. And I think a lot of people are enjoying it, which is really cool. But it could potentially have more enjoyment in their mode of choice as well. So that timing thing isn't something that I don't like hearing it for me personally, and I'm not sure that the community is going to react negatively to that as well. I would hope not. I think there's a reality to it, and that's the piece that I love finding out. And again, I appreciate being able to sit here and talk to you live about it, because again, I as soon as you bring up like, well, I wonder what that would actually take. I don't know, but I'm curious. I assume it's not something you could just flick a switch on, but knowing that it would take months is super interesting to me.
Now, here's the interesting part. I'm going to give you a spot of hope here. Because the actual answer is we could flip a switch and turn it on. We actually did devise the skill-based rating algorithm to work for solos. We did do the work to set up all the interface and the UI and all this other stuff for solos as well. We could do it. The specific question you asked, though, was, could we do a community-run test to have the community provide their vocal playing feedback that they want to have solos, which we could then use to make a decision and then launch a solo mode? And that's the question I answered. It would take till season 9 to do it like that.
But basically he's saying we could YOLO it for season 8. The problem is that
if you wanted to YOLO it and
Yeah.
just be like, well, we're launching ranked solos, turn the queues on, let's see if they crash and burn, go for it. Like, if we were going to be that reckless, and maybe we are going to be, like, who knows, right? But if we wanted to roll the dice, we have done the legwork to do it. And what it comes down to is, can we convince everyone involved that rolling these dice is a good idea? And when it comes time to roll them, do we still think it's a good idea? Are we willing to take that risk? Are we willing to take that risk not for us, but for our players? Because for the players, if we open the solo queues and they're not ready, and they don't work, and we have to pull them back, that's going to hurt them as much as it'll hurt us.
Yeah. Imagine what that feels like, right? You get 1 week of popping solo queues, and then we get 2 weeks in, and it doesn't get the adoption that everyone's hoping for. The ranked season is effectively over a week and a half in, right?
Yeah,
and
that's
then,
the real pain here.
That's the real pain point. And people are screaming at us going, what did you guys do? This doesn't make any sense. I can't play. And we don't want anyone to have a bad experience like that.
So we ran the PGC test. Things happened. TLDR, it had the red zone in it. And because it had the red zone in it, no one played. Unfortunately, this painted a very negative image of the literal esports settings. If we were going to argue to have literal esports settings in the launch, because it's easy to look at the numbers and go, look, you had the exact settings plus the red zone, and then it didn't work. And then we have to be like, whoa, hold on. You snuck that red zone in there. Nobody told you to do that.
Yep.
And it just created this whole situation where players saw that we had launched the PGC settings and it didn't work. And then there was this conspiracy amongst the players that we had purposefully tanked the settings so that now we could say, well, we tried it and you didn't like it. Guess no esports mode for you. And for months, that was the conversation, right? The dangerous risk of launching a solo queue or a duo queue before they're healthy or ready is that we have to turn them off early. And then players think that we have tested it, decided it doesn't work, and it's gone forever, and it's not coming back, which would just probably not be the case. It would probably be shelved until we felt we had a way to do it that was sustainable, but it would probably kill all hype forever for us actually launching a solo mode.
Yeah, and for what it's worth, absolutely zero of those conspiracy theories are ever true. And, we get these internally and we're just like, you will not believe what they're saying today. And, it's like, why would we ever sabotage the thing we love most in the world? Professionally, I suppose. But, one of the things we love most in the world, the thing we've dedicated our entire lives to for years
in the making.
Why would we ever do that? But there's always these funny conspiracy theories. And I mean, just again, the boycott ones are honestly the ones that send the exact opposite signal every time, because we look at the data and we're like, well, nobody played it. So it's not like, we're going to improve it. It's like, it just didn't work. Let's go do something completely different. So, it's, yeah, it's because it's too difficult to collect. That only makes sense if you pair it with the sentiment attached to it and the knowledge of that this boycott even existed, which is impossible to quantify and is not consistent around the world. So, that is never a good signal. Like, we can't use that as designers. Yeah.
Right. And I'm trying to battle my internal, just YOLO it, guys.
We're kind of there with you some days. I mean, I wouldn't say we haven't had this exact conversation. Like, we just need to do it. But if we just do it, we have to do it with the full knowledge that this is a real danger. Or, we could do it with I don't know, adding more bots to the normal solo mode or something like that to even stronger push people over there, It's
like the danger. We can sit here and we will draw aggro from the community. We will tank that negative sentiment. We will do it, right? We're here for the players, right? We will tank that aggro as necessary in order to deliver the experience that we want them to have, that they will enjoy. But what we really don't want to do is force them to eat a mistake we made in the form of we gave them something and their heart opened up in excitement and then we took it away and now they're hurt because of it. We don't want to be the ones that do that. And that's what'll happen if we roll these dice and they fail. Of course, the promise, the ever-distant utopia, is that we roll the dice and it works, and it's all amazing, and I love that. Maybe it'll happen, but it's really, really scary. Not for us, but for the players.
And you have to understand, launching ranked mode period was a bit of that for us, right?
Sure.
Because we don't know what the adoption's going to be. So we're really happy with the numbers, but I mean, even launching an additional 2 queues into the game right now is extremely dangerous. So, I mean, obviously we couldn't do that even until the bots were in, for example. That's what made it possible. But
so I guess the only thing I would add to it is I recognize the risk. I like the way you framed it. The thing I would add though is like, I was normally, 6 months ago, I had most of my playtime during primetime NA, right? So it would have been, 8:30 p.m. Central Time until midnight, right? That's when I played most of the time. So all the queues are stacked. I could play whatever I wanted, etc. My playtime switched to where sometimes I was playing in the morning or sometimes I'm playing in the early afternoon. I don't put it on PUBG that I can't queue into a solo match in the morning. You know what I mean? So there's also a piece of it that, well, yeah, I think you're right that it could be you're looked at putting it in and then pulling it away. I don't look at solo queue being dead in the morning NA time as something that you did or the company did or something wrong with it. There's not enough players right now for this to launch.
I think you're too nice, Mike. Imagine you're a new player downloading the game for the first time, and you load it up, and you're hanging out by yourself because you don't have a squad and you don't have anyone to play with, and you queue for solo, and it says 50 minutes. Boom, game dead, uninstall.
Right. So the issue here, the player experience issue is not that you go to queue and it doesn't work. The issue is that you will note in your head, okay, 7 a.m. queues don't work. Tomorrow you'll try at 8, but because you didn't queue at 7, the queues are deader, right? And maybe 8 fails because enough people don't queue at 8, and then you queue at 9. And then eventually, only in like these very concentrated primetime hours is it even possible. And if everyone had just played, if they had just played normally, the queues would work. This is actually a thing that's happened to us so many times.
Yeah.
Player psychology, waiting timers, trying to concentrate players in a certain hour. It actually causes a death spiral that will kill a queue. And that's a problem, right? When you have enough players who want to play. You have enough players who want to play Miramar, but none of them pick Miramar in map select because they're all confident that no one's going to queue into Miramar. And so 200 players who could have played don't because they pick a different map because they just assume it's not going to work.
Yeah, that's why games show things like the number of people in queue or the likely waiting time. And matchmaking is all about psychology.
Right, but if I cancel and queue back up, it's instant, right?
Well, I mean, that's a whole... There is a reason for that. That is a whole other thing. That is not my can of worms to get into.
Yeah.
No, I was saying it facetiously because there's that mindset of like, oh, I've been in queue for a minute and I hit cancel and I get right in. Yeah. It's that false positive of, well, it worked this time, so I should try that every time. The
more people that cancel, the worse it gets. That's exactly
right. You actually see this, the inverse effect of this, right? In FPP queues now that have bots, you'll see queues that previously would have to start with 20 or 30 real players or not start at all at various times in various regions with various different team sizes in FPP. They just would not start. Because players knew those queues were slow or they wouldn't start, and so even though they wanted to, they didn't. But now that we have bots in there, the matches are guaranteed to start, right? You'll always get a match. So at the start of the launch of the patch, we added bots. Yes, lots of the matches that were FPP had lots of bots in them. However, once players started to realize that no matter when they queued, it would always start, the queues started to fill up more and more with real players. And now we have FPP queues with 60, 70, 80% players, where before they just would not start or they would start with almost nobody. And it's because of that confidence that when you hit queue, it will play. It's a very real self-reinforcing effect, and it goes both ways. Unfortunately, fortunately, there's no bots in ranked. So this effect only works against us in this case.
I think for right now, the different configurations per region is possibly something to do. Is possibly a way to go. I mean, there's challenges there in and of itself. Like I said before, it's not exactly the direction we love, but But that's actually, I think that's a possibility.
Right.
Okay.
There are design options here.
Yeah.
There is more possible than just turn the queues on, see what happens, right?
Yeah.
There are ways that we could hedge our bets, play it safe, do what we can to support these modes if we felt that it would work and be healthy and it would help our players out. So we could, for example, open only on weekends, right, for solos. Play squads all week, tune in on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and you can only play solo ranked on those days. Then those players might, if they all concentrated their power together combined into the weekends, they
Wonder
might
Twins
Voltron
combined.
together and form a solo rank queue.
Yeah.
And that's a possibility. That's one of the things you could do. And then say those queues pop really hard, right? On the weekends. They always pop. The solo queues run the entire time. Then maybe we go, what if we ease it back to Thursday to Sunday? And then if Thursday also starts to be really regularly healthy, you back it into Wednesday a little bit. And before you know it, it's possible that you have a full week open queue. It's one of the directions we could take.
Yeah.
But again, you still, even if you try it that way, you run the risk that maybe there's players, they don't understand that it's only open on weekends. Are they aware ranked even exists for solos because it's not there when they play? Maybe they only play on Wednesdays and they don't play on weekends ever, so it doesn't hit the mark.
Yeah. There's not a way to make everybody happy in design ever.
We only get to take one swing at it for the biggest effect, so you want to really guess correctly.
Yeah, and I kind of asked that question, maybe assuming some of that, but I appreciate the back end because, again, it's really easy to think or say or read somewhere on the internet that, oh, the game's been out this long, why can't they just do this? And it's good to know, I guess for me personally, the player experience, how can I help it? And it's things like what queues are up using the tools that are in the game. So I appreciate that response because it's not exactly clear how this moves forward, I think, from our end and from yours. So it's cool to kind of hear what's going into that decision.
Thanks for checking out this segment of the Winner Winner podcast. Be sure to check out the full show at youtube.com/xpmedianow or the audio only version everywhere podcasts are downloaded.